little chuckle there. Anyway,
Set on manual white
the workplace is getting older. In fact, if we look at these graphs up here, now this is put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can see that every line going down is either the 15 to 19, 20 to 24, or 25 to 34. Everything increasing is 45 to 54 and on up to 55, 64, and 65. And these trends have continued. This ends at 2010, but they continue to increase. You see here, this graph shows the labor force participation of individuals 55 and older. Ever since 1990, there has increased up to 40. Anybody have a guess at what the median age is in the workforce right now? 42? 52? It's almost 45. It's approaching there. This is what BLS projects here between 2008 and 18, so we're already approaching that. The 12 million of the 12.6 million additional workers in the workforce needed over the next 10 years will be that age group of 55 and older. Not a bad thing. As we age, though, we do tend to have limitations in certain areas. I know I've noticed that. I'm 57, and yeah, my memory's not what it used to be. A loss of flexibility. My reaction time is slower. Some declining vision and hearing and so forth. And the bottom line there is that we sometimes are in denial about these things, and we try to push ourselves beyond maybe our limitations. The point being is that we do have limitations as we get older, and we've got to recognize that and be able to work with that. And as employers, we need to recognize that and be able to perhaps accommodate the older worker in the workplace. So, we'll shift gears just a little bit here and show you that, now this is lost time injuries for every 10,000 full-time equivalents there. And you can see it. I could actually go, this starts 1994, but I could go back to 1970. It's about when OSHA began in 74. And you see the frequency of workplace injuries, whether they're just medical only or lost time injuries, has gone down every year. So that's the good sign, or good news. The bad news is that the costs associated with medical and lost time have gone up. Now, certainly a component of that is just medical costs in general. In fact, I was sifting through some old records my mom had, and in 1961, I had to spend 7 days in the hospital here in Salt Lake. I found the hospital bill. Anybody venture to, right now, an average day spent in the hospital in this country costs you about $2,250. That's just the room. That didn't include doctor fees or anything like that. Anybody venture to guess what a day in the hospital cost in 1961? Yeah, the room charge was $18 a day. The operating room fee was $45. The anesthesiologist, my wife just had carpal tunnel surgery, which is about a 20-minute operation. But, you know, recovery and the waiting to come out of anesthesia, she was probably in there an hour. Anesthesiologist's bill was over $500 just for that 20-minute procedure. It was $11 back in 1961. So my total hospital bill was just under $350 for 7 days. I thought that was kind of interesting. So we're seeing this, and then you can see that, of course, the graphs that are climbing the steepest here, the age groups, are 45, 54, and 55 on up, this gray and the yellow here. And that's medical, and this is indemnity. So your lost time payments, again, you can see everything's increasing, but our age groups are increasing even at a steeper rate there. Now, what does this mean? Well, this is a very telling graph to me. If you look off here to the right, this is lost time injury rate per 10,000 full-time workers. Not much difference there. I mean, for 65 and older, 100, which is, down there. So we don't see so much a frequency increase as we get older in the injuries, maybe in certain categories, and we'll look at that. But what does this tell you? This is the average lost time days to get back. Takes longer to recover. So it takes us longer to heal as we get older, which makes sense. This is probably not a revelation to any of us here, but it's interesting to see this. Now, I threw this up here just so if you have interest in, this is total state and local government, and then there's private industry, state, and local government. I don't know, is there any kind of rivalry between local governments and state at all? So 65 and older, average days for local government is 13, which is pretty close to that graph I showed you, 13 days. For state is 11, and for private industry is 14. So local governments are better than private industries, and we're just a little bit over state. So I thought it was a little bit interesting to compare that. Now, where are we seeing the more severe lost time type injuries as far as the claim type? Now, this is a severity index, so it's a ratio of paid indemnity for that diagnosis against all paid indemnity or all paid claims, indemnity claims. So they've come up with this ratio here. And for the 20 to 34 age group, our most expensive injuries we're seeing are carpal tunnel, lumbar disc replacement. You would expect that if that's actually happening. And cervicalgia, I guess that's how you pronounce that, which is kind of neck pain. But for the 45 to 64 age group, rotator cuff and rotator cuff syndrome, which is basically kind of the same thing. It's just rotator cuff syndrome involves more of that area where the rotator cuff is. And then we also have lumbar disc replacement again, and then lumbosacral neuritis, which is kind of sciatica. Why do you think, this is interesting to me, why do you think as we get older we have more rotator cuff type injuries in the workforce? Any thoughts on that?
Or falls.
Falls?
Or falls.
Okay. You know, you're probably right on that, because the next graph we're going to look shows up some falls.
We're used to lifting and doing things, and as we age, we think we
Can do it.
what we used to.
That's very true.
I've heard that the rotator cuff, the shoulder injury is something that kind of occurs over time, and it's not like debilitating, and so we just kind of put it off. Then when we get older, it's like, okay, I got to do something.
Yeah. You know, a lot of times they don't perform surgery on those, just the reason you're saying. Another interesting tidbit on this is, how many in here work out on a regular basis? Maybe go to a gym. When you lift weights, do you lift weights? Anybody in here lift weights or used to? Okay, when you lift weights, I'll call on you again. What typically are you doing? What muscle groups are you building up? Yeah, it's bench press, it's curls, it's military press. Do you ever isolate a rotator cuff muscle or tendon and try to build that up? Do we even know how to do that? We don't. And so these tend to get weaker as well, and because of that. And just in general, loss of activity. We do not get the blood flow to those joints, especially up in that area where this rotator cuff is. And so we tend to see more injuries in that as we get older. So I guess my point in even bringing that up is, we talk about information we need to get out to our employees. Maybe it'd be prudent to share a little bit of information on how we build up those rotator cuff muscles. Maybe a little handout on that. You know, these kind of exercises, resistance, whether it's just a rubber band or a weight against resistance, or this type of exercise where you're pulling maybe a rubber band down here and pulling up, that's what builds up those rotator cuff muscles. And a lot of people don't get those kind of exercises. So something to think about when we're sharing. We're going to talk a little bit about general wellness programs and what we can do, but I thought this interesting. Now this is lost time, and then this is just medical, and you can see they're almost identical. Rotator cuff again, and syndrome, and the other. So these are the types of injuries we're seeing that have most medical costs associated with them, as well as lost time, and especially for those age groups. Now, just of note, because sometimes it gets skewed a little bit when we talk about cost of injuries, increased cost of claims may be due to higher wages of the older worker, as you know, work comp is based on payroll. But we see these, the older workers typically are having those knee, back, and rotator cuff injuries, which tend to cost more dollars and tend to be more debilitating and cost more to get back, versus the younger worker where they're maybe more just neck and back pain and they're more sprains as opposed to actual tears and things like that. Now, you mentioned some of these coming from falls. Now this, I find it very interesting that if you look at, now this is 2012 workplace fatalities by age group from 20 on to 65 and plus. Slip, trip, and falls, we can see gets increasingly higher, and then it peaks out and then kind of goes down. But fall on the same level. Here's 0 at 20 to 24. Now again, these are fatalities. Up to 50 is we're 65 and older. So that's just a slip and fall on a surface like this, where we're losing 50 people over 65. Now, what would the reason for that be? Well, I think loss of, again, range of motion, loss of response time or reflexes, and be able to catch ourselves. The other high one here, which is also interesting, is struck by a vehicle. You see very few for these younger kids, and it increasingly gets higher. So again, I think that's probably due to, again, reflex time, being able to get out of the way, or even seeing something. Now, when I say a vehicle, it could be a car, it could be a forklift, or some other type of motorized type vehicle. But we're seeing more people in that 65 plus age group, or 55 on up, dying from injuries like that. So interesting to know this kind of information as maybe we prepare training and such for our employees. Now, what should employers do? So I want to talk about 3 things. One, just general awareness on wellness training. You know, if I ask this group, how many of you have safety programs? Probably everybody in here would raise their hand. How many in here have some type of wellness program? Okay, I'd say closer to 50%, which is what BLS comes up with, is that about 50% of the country have some type of wellness program for those that have 50 employees and up. That's increasing as a good thing. And we'll kind of define, well, what is wellness? I mean, it could be a full-blown, I was just giving this class actually earlier today, and ARUP was in the group. They're the people that take blood, and they have 2,500 people across the nation. They're based here in Salt Lake. And they have this pretty elaborate wellness program. And you know, they figure it saves them an average of $7,000 per employee just on health plan costs alone because of the wellness program. And they shared a little bit about that. But I want to talk about at least 3 things. So, the Department of Health and Human Services, this was a study they did back in 2010. And this is just a slice of the general workplace population, every 100 employees. You see, out of that 100, we have 6 diabetic, 30 cholesterol, 44 suffer from stress, 38 are overweight, 20 don't wear seatbelts, 20 are over 55, 24 don't exercise, 21 smoke, 25 have cardiovascular disease, 26 high blood pressure, and 31 use alcohol excessively. Now these statistics are probably going to vary by state. And I think if we looked at Utah, we'd actually probably fare better than this. We tend to be a little bit healthier state. But I don't know, does this surprise anybody that we have that much injury or illness out in the workplace, just out of a slice of 100 people? Okay. Well, let's kind of associate these statistics with workers' comp and some of these modifiable health risks. Now, when I talk about modifiable health risks, I'm talking about diabetes, hypertension, maybe cholesterol, and non-modifiable health factors would be our age, gender, work, or genetic history, and so forth. But this is what a study did back in 2001. Businesses pay an average of $2,189 more in work comp costs for smokers compared with $176 for non-smokers. You know, when you smoke, we take in, they say, 4,000 chemical substances, and 400 of those 4,000 are toxic. My wife right now smoked 10 years between the ages of 15, 25, and then she quit. And now she's battling COPD. Anybody heard of that disease? Chronic pulmonary obstructive disorder, something like that. She'll battle it all her life. It's something you can actually die from. But it's something that's caused by smoking. And even though it was earlier in life, now she's dealing with that sort of thing. BMI, body mass index, is a ratio between your height and your weight. Now this is quite an indictment on our society here. As we see, and KSL was just 2 days ago put out the 2013, so I updated that one, and I don't think it's in your handout if you're looking at this on your computer. But watch the graph here as I progress through these slides here. You can see Utah in 2003 we're between 15% and 19% body mass index. And we'll look at the graph, how that translates, but that's pretty good, 15 to 19%. Now look at the rest of the country as we progress through here. So this is 2003, 2005, now we increased, we're up to the 20 to 24. And you can see here in the deep south, we're doing, geez, some of those are greater than 30%. 2007, we're still the same. 2009, we're still the same. Now they switched colors on me. And so now we go to, we're still in that kind of 20 to 25%. 2012, and here's the latest, 2013. So we're still in that 20 to 25%, which is pretty good. But you can see here we have some states, Mississippi and West Virginia, that are greater than 35% BMI. 30 is obese. So 30 and above is obese. In fact, this chart here, if you want to kind of see what your own BMI is here, you can look at this. So you can see that normal range, 18 to 25. Overweight would be 25 to 30. And then obese would be 30 and above. So you feeling pretty good about yourselves, BMI-wise? So look at that. Anyway, this is interesting to correlate this. Who has the worst BMI in the world? Well, according to this, it's us. We have 30.6% that are greater, or 30 or greater BMI. So that's at the borderline of obese. Why is that? Shorter? This is interesting too. Japan, 3.2. I was looking at age or longevity, how long we typically live in this nation. You know what the average is for a male in this nation now? It used to be 72 forever. It seemed like it was 72. For a male, it's 77. For a female in this nation, about 82. Japan is the second at 85. Interesting to see that correlation, though, between healthier, at least from a body mass index, and how long you live. And number one, and I never would have guessed this for longest living is Morocco. Can't tell you why. Anyway, now why is this important? Well, here's a study put out by Duke University. It's in 2007. And they said obese workers filed 2 times the number of workers' comp claims, 7 times higher medical costs, 13 times more days away from work. The average medical claim per 100 employees was 51,000 for obese. So we're talking 30 and above BMI versus 7,500 for non-obese. And both Johns Hopkins and NCCI, the people that set your EMOD rates, released similar studies which correlated with the same results that Duke University had. So here's a correlation between how hep you're getting, as far as our body mass index, and workers' comp. Now, here they switched a little bit. They're looking at BMI greater than 40, so not 30 now. So we're talking more morbidly obese. But here's the claims, just pure claim frequency here. Lost time injuries. Basically double what we're seeing for a normal BMI, 18 to 25. And then the lost days, look at that. That's a 1,200% increase. An average of 14 days for this age group. This BMI group versus greater than 40, 183 days. That's staggering to me. Probably not surprising, I guess. You think about it. One other component to this, which is also interesting, and this is what we call claimants with comorbidity diagnosis. In other words, we have a work comp injury, but then also in association with that, and actually probably something that exacerbates the injury itself, we have another illness associated with that. And this graph is showing that, well, the illness is either, or a situation or a condition, either drug abuse, it's either diabetes or obesity, or hypertension or pregnancy in this case. Now you can see that typically older claimants, where we're peaking out here with diabetes and hypertension around 55, a little bit earlier on the obesity here. The significance of this, and I don't know, this isn't alarming, but now this is, you can see injury, these years were from 96 to 2009. And we're talking about what, maybe just 3%, 4% of the work comp claims involved a comorbidity. This rate has tripled, though, in the last 9 years. So we're seeing this go up, this issue with comorbidity. And you can see the cost here. Average claim costs were about $2,500 when there was no comorbidity, I can't spit that out, condition. But you can see if we did have hypertension, cost almost 5 or 6 times. Pulmonary condition, diabetes, and drug abuse, 5 and 6 times the cost when you have one of these other conditions which exacerbates the work comp injury. So that's significant to me, and as someone who works in the industry here. Bottom line here, this was a study done in 2001 for work comp costs and the effect of some of these modifiable health risks have on it. So smoking, 1,243% higher, poor health, no exercise, 550%, 6%, and so forth. Down here we have low health risk. So if we just had maybe doing a wellness screening and we have a low health risk, average of 106 average on annual work comp. If you have high, so multiple health risks, maybe you have hypertension in conjunction with diabetes, you can see that the increase from $106 to $1,241. So I haven't really thought much about this correlation in the past. As a safety or loss prevention guy, I'd come in, maybe talk to clients like yourselves. If we were talking about safety programs, what typically are we focusing on if we're talking about improving safety in your workplaces? I heard a voice. No? Well, we're typically talking about, well, what kind of training are you doing? Or, do you have some safety rules in place? Or Are you using any kind of job hazard analysis, maybe to identify and properly train on steps to perform a task and do it safely? We're talking about maybe hazard identification. For maybe you walk through your facilities and you look for physical hazards that can cause injuries, or maybe you're looking for poor work practices that can cause injuries. Do we ever sit down and talk about general wellness? Typically not. But I think as we look at safety, maybe a more holistic approach here, this is a component that we're kind of missing out on, that we need to maybe shift and place more emphasis and focus on. So, why integrate programs like safety programs and wellness programs? I think after looking at some of this data, it makes sense to me that, again, taking more of a holistic approach to safety and realizing that it does have a serious impact on the injuries that we see, not so much from a frequency standpoint, even though there are some, but especially from that severity standpoint and being able to overcome and heal from injuries that do occur in the workplace. So I'm just curious, wellness, you define what it is for your organization. A little feedback from you here. What are you doing now at your public entities to try and promote and raise awareness with regard to just general wellness? Are you doing anything right here?
We've just started designing our wellness program. We've designed it and we're going to implement it. And we're going to do it in collaboration with our employees. So we have representatives of a group who will kind of be sort of that personal coaching. Right now we do a lot of communications or email on the wellness, inspirational piece. And we have an assessment of our organization so we can actually target those areas of need to be able to focus on that and create more of a healthy environment for our employees to increase productivity and so forth. They're part of the process.
So you're getting their feedback. Was it through a survey of some sort, or?
Yeah, we're doing a health risk assessment.
Okay.
And so based on their personal responses, we don't receive, what their personal responses are, but it helps us to target those areas of need so that they can be engaged in the process and be incentivized to create a
participate
healthy
in that.
lifestyle and so forth.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything you're doing now or looking to do?
We've been, for the last couple of years, each quarter, present a different challenge for all of our employees. So, like, we had a 10,000 step challenge a day, 10,000 step a day challenge one quarter. We did. This time we're doing eating fruits and vegetables and marking off along the chart to get how many fruits and vegetables in during the day. We've done, actually, one quarter we did more safety stuff, like wear your seatbelt every day, floss your teeth, all of those types of daily tasks we should do. But we switch off every quarter and do either an exercise challenge, a lose and well challenge, type of stuff like that.
Do you find that your employees want to participate in these programs, or do you really have to urge them with incentives?
Well, it's funny, our incentives aren't huge.
Yeah.
We just do drawings at the end, and so the ones that are participating, I think they're participating because they want to.
They want it.
But we only have 30 to 35 people out of our 120 that actually continually participates with it. And they'll switch off. Some like the exercise more than the food challenges and stuff like that, so it's different.
Well, it's to make it fun and interesting can be a challenge sometimes. Tom, how are we doing on time?
Go a little longer. You're jump back to lunch break.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm not going too long. I was just going to mention to you stretch and flex programs. I don't know if any of you use those, but we talk about trying to prevent, most of the injuries we see in the workplace are some type of strain and sprain. That's close to 40% of the injuries we see. If you really want to make an impact, that might be an area of looking Some of those come, as we mentioned here, just from slip and falls, and some are from material handling. You know, I've had some experience with one company in particular. It was a sanitation district, and these are the guys that are out there pulling manhole covers and jackhammering and putting new rings around and raising, you know, when they've had a new road, they raise up the manhole cover. So I think we're averaging maybe 5 or 6 serious strain injuries every year. Upper body, lower back, shoulder. They decided they wanted to do something about it. Mostly these were men that working in that department, and pretty fit, but you know, some of them could use some help. And so two things they did. They started a wellness program, and they had the clinic come out that typically they send their people to if they are hurt. So like a work net or a first net, or forget all the clinics are about here, but and they came out for free because they give them business. And they looked at what the guys did every day. And then they designed a little bit of stretch and flex program to help them and being limbered up before they went out to work. And so they decided they were going to do it as a group, beginning of the day, and then they also did it at lunchtime and then halfway through their afternoon work. And then, so that was a stretch and flex program they had put together, and then they also did the wellness program. They had a little room that was open, nothing in there, and they started with a little bit of equipment, started small, maybe a treadmill and some free weights and things like that, and then they built it up. And it was interesting to see, once they started seeing results, everybody kind of caught on, and they started, you know, some of the guys would come early to work out at 7:30 and go to work at 8. Some of them would have their lunch, have a half hour for lunch and take the other half hour and go work out. Some of them started staying late and working out. And they did religiously their stretch and flex program. They tried to make it a little bit interesting, and so they had one person assigned to lead, and they rotated that through. And the person that got to lead got to bring their own music, so they would stretch and flex to their own music. So, I mean, and it literally ranged from Snoop Dogg rap music to classical music. And, you know, and then so some of the other departments started looking in, you know, on these guys, and they go, oh, so you're the ones that have to do that stretch and flex program, huh? And they go, no, we don't have to do it. We want to do it. And they said, well, we could do it too. And he said, no, you didn't qualify for it. You know, we're kind of exclusive. We got our stretch and flex program. So kind of a little jealousy in there, and it started kind of snowballing until everybody kind of got on board. And I worked with them for about 5 years, and after they had implemented this program, and I don't want to say that, you know, everything they did resulted in the results that they got, but they had no strain injuries for 3 years after they started that program. It had been in place for a year or two. Now, I left them, and so I'm not sure, you know, if they were able to maintain that. Sometimes you put in interesting programs and the challenge is to maintain that. But I think I've got a few companies I work with that when they see the results and the people catch on, they've stayed with these programs for years, and it's worked for them, and they've had some good results with it. So you kind of define your own wellness, but you're trying to impact decision making and behaviors when it comes to just general health, what we eat, how active we are, and provide them with educational materials, whether that's through, you know, it used to be the old payroll stuff for safety information, but now everything's electronic. So now you either got to put maybe an email with their check stub or something, or you have a newsletter, or maybe you have a bulletin board. I've got one client that they've encouraged using the stairs as opposed to the elevator or escalator. And so they start putting bulletin boards and information in the stairwells. And then they started putting up like free coupons for healthy snacks and things like that to encourage people to use the stairwells. So I thought that was kind of clever. Site-based programs, health fairs. I know for about 5 years at the Work Comp Fund we've had a health and wellness fair, and we created a committee, and so we get input from the employees on what they want at the fair, and then, you know, when you involve others in that sort of thing, then they kind of take ownership, and when they take ownership, they're more apt to be involved in the program. And just 2 years ago, we added the safety component to the fair, so now we call it our Health, Wellness, and Safety Fair, and so we have vendors come in all those areas and try to impart education to those that attend the fair. Sports challenges, I know we do a little, currently we're doing a little WCF Olympics, and it's a kind of competition by age group on physical abilities, whether that's push-ups or sit-ups or something along that line, and there's minimal prizes. We're also doing a 5-for-5 contest, so if you have 5 fruits and vegetables, and this has got the honor system, you submit your name and there's a drawing for, you know, something simple. Not a lot of incentive, but, you know, it's just bringing, raising awareness, and people like to get involved in those sort of things. You mentioned getting the employees involved, whether that's just getting their feedback or maybe doing surveys. I think that's excellent, and being able to do that. You know, committees are good, and I think rotating those through, again, kind of helps with buying in and ownership on those things. Changing the culture. You know, I have hope that we can do this. One of the little things from that Department of Health and Human Services that had that, what did it say, 20 out of 100 don't wear seatbelts, was that what it was? You know, if I'd asked a group this size 20 years ago, how many of you wore seatbelts? At best, I would get probably 30-35%. If I asked a group, you today, I won't do it, but how many of you wear seatbelts? I'll bet we'd get close to 85%. So what has changed in that culture? Okay, law has changed. Policy, internal.
We become educated.
Education's a big one. You know, if I had been, when I was 20 years ago and had kids at home, if I'd have backed down the driveway and had my seatbelt on, my kids would say something to me. And I'd put it on. Because I didn't used to wear a seatbelt. So education is a big thing, and starting young. You start in the elementary schools. And all these things contribute. Certainly technology in vehicles, and if you don't, the alarm goes off, and that can be pretty annoying. But the point is that the culture has changed. And I think we just kind of take some hope in that we can change the culture with regard to our general wellness as well. Whether that's talking about body mass index or nutrition or activity levels. I think it's just, you've got to be consistent, you've got to be diligent, and you've got to promulgate these programs in as part of your daily education that you provide your employees. But I think there's big payoffs for that. We've kind of talked about stretching. I'm going to skip that one. Just, you know, these are just some ideas here. I actually had a handout and I forgot to bring it, but if you want to Google 70 ideas for wellness programs, it'll come up with a list of things. These are some of them here that you can provide just ideas, anything, you know, from even simple things like, you know, if you've got vending machines, you know, what are your healthy snack choices in vending machines? Can you look at that? Maybe substituting donuts for a healthier snack. I know when we do our seminars, it used to be nothing but donuts. Now there's healthier things. We bring in fruit and bagels and low-fat spreads and things like that. And people want that. In fact, the donuts are usually left. Nobody eats them anymore. So that's a good thing. Just some benefits on integrating programs here, as we've talked about the association with wellness and workers' comp. You know, I'm just going to, I think, end here with just showing you, we partnered up with this company called Orion. Now, they're kind of a wellness program. So this is certainly some investment in this program. This costs some money, but they come in and do the screenings, and then depending on where we test out, you may trigger, like me, I've got high blood pressure, and so now I need to talk to a wellness coach every month on the phone. And we set goals and we work towards things of nutrition and exercise and diet, and to try and bring blood pressure down and just improve my overall health. And so I'm just going to share, I'm not going to go through these, but these were the results that we had as a company between 2012 and 13, and we're in our third year of this, working with them. I could say it's an investment, but I know the Work Comp Fund feels like the investment pays off in dividends in that we improve our health and we improve our rate for our healthcare plan. And as we've been talking about today, we improve hopefully our work comp rate as well, because we're healthier and we have fewer claims and fewer severe claims. So these are just kind of results here. Here's my blood pressure one. Improved 134 over 89 to 127 over 82. And every category improved somewhat. Now, some more than others. We had 5 participants back then that actually stopped using tobacco products. So I think a win-win situation there. I'm just going to, it's about time to end. Oh, okay. Well, let me just show this video clip, and I don't even think we'll watch the whole thing, but if you run that, Tom, this is on Making It Fun. I hope there's not a little ad on here. Sometimes they...
The 2014 Nissan Altima, 270 horses, and blind spot warning. Nothing is an Altima except another Altima. Shop at ChooseNissan.com. Click now for great local offers like this.
Sometimes they let you skip those. This is in Stockholm, Sweden.